Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, everyone. Okay, sweet. Okay, so why we are here? We are here because of the shifting real estate market and how to, figure out to pivot and thrive through it. So obviously, anyone in here knows that things are getting a little weird when it comes to the real estate market. So before we dive into that, you probably want to know who you're talking to. So uh, my name is Justice Foss, and I am a loan officer with Bell Mortgage up here in Minnesota. Um, Bell Mortgage is a privately owned bank, so I like to say it's in between the credit unions and the big boys. So we have all the amenities of the big boys, but we have a personal touch of the credit unions, and then we actually work weekends. As you can see, I'm licensed in quite a few states, but I'm, again, based out of Minnesota. I was born and raised in Fargo, North Dakota, where I spent most of my life until I found my way here into Minnesota. That link there, that's just in case you wanted to look me up and creep on me a bit. So I actually have my master's in counseling and therapy as well as school counseling, and I previously worked at a private practice as a therapist at a high school, as a school counselor, and as a psychology instructor at a community college. The job as the psychology instructor was honestly one of the best jobs I've ever had. So by teaching these classes, it kind of gives me a little bit back of that feeling that I had teaching those classes to the college kids. So I really use, as a lender, I really use my background in education as the basis for how I operate with clients. And again, teaching classes like today allows me to provide educational content and value to you, who are my peers and my colleagues. As you can see, I'm married to my beautiful wife, Rachel, and we have 2 fur babies, and we actually have one on the way. We have a little boy coming in February. Maisie is our black lab, and Zelda is our golden doodle. I love to play sports. You can see golf there. I play a sport called broomball. So those of you who are in warmer climates, broomball is played on an inside hockey rink, and you run on the ice and play with a ball in a large net. It's kind of like a mix between hockey and soccer. And then I play roller hockey and ice hockey goalie. So you can see there, that's roller hockey stuff. And then I played soccer my whole life, and that's a college photo of me when I had really long hair. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of look into who I am. Again, one of the main reasons I wanted to host this class is because I wanted to help educate. So my job as a lender is not only to provide a world-class experience for my clients and the people I work with, but I believe as a true partner, it helps people grow, right? So everyone knows that education can help you grow. So if you're a referral partner of mine already, thank you for attending. This is my way of saying thank you. If we don't yet work together, perhaps you're open to the possibility. But again, today's really just one more example of what I do for my real referral partners to help them succeed in their business. So enough all that stuff. Let's get on to why you're really here. So quick question. Does anyone know the purpose of a lighthouse? It might be a simple question, but in the chat, could you let me know what the purpose of a lighthouse is? Yeah, thank you, Jenny. Yes, and David, thank you. Yeah. The purpose of it is to guide vessels to safely in and out of harbors. Now, wouldn't you agree that the current market has some choppy waters? We are definitely in choppy waters, right? And navigating has become more and more challenging. Now, for some of you, you may need to sharpen some of those dormant skills that you haven't used in a while. Now, for others, you might feel lost or need a guide. So regardless of where you are today, it's the intention of this and of me to be a lighthouse for you. So today we're going to share some information to help you navigate the current waters that we're in and help you safely reach your destination. So let's get started. So here's our agenda for today. We're going to talk about what to say right now and overcoming uncertainty. We're going to adjust seller expectations because we all know it's been a seller's market, and I'm sure you are in those conversations trying to redirect where that is. The solution to cancellations, price reductions, and buyer affordability, and then unlocking inventory where to find your next motivated seller. So uncertainty in the market is killing deals. When people don't feel confident, what do? They typically do nothing. They just sit and wait. I know that's me when I'm watching the stock market, deciding if I want to put money in or put money out. If you were in the stock market yesterday, your 401k, just don't look at it. But uncertainty just makes you sit on the sidelines. And by the way, we all know the media is not helping. We know this to be true. In this article from July of 2018, the media headlines were talking about a housing crash in 2018. 2018 housing crash. We all know how that ended up, right? So how long have they been saying that? Every major media outlet is amplifying the uncertainty in the housing market and forecasting doom and gloom right now. Now, a question for you, because you are all professionals. Are foreclosures coming? What do you think? Do we think we're going to get a bunch of foreclosures like we did in 08, 09? David says no. Alita says no. Jenny possibly. Yes, maybe. I'm currently in the camp no. It'd be interesting to look at the data, which you guys would have access to, but currently it thought because COVID we're having some. Okay, yeah. So COVID obviously mitigated some of that with mortgage companies kind of giving some relief to borrowers, but the overall spike in foreclosures, to my opinion, will not happen like it did in 08, 09. Now, that being said, let's look at these headlines. The cooling housing market enters into the great deceleration. Home prices decelerate as the housing market downshifts. Buying a home at the wrong time can backfire big time. Here's why it may pay to wait. Are these positive or negative headlines? Obviously, they're definitely negative, right? So here's a nugget to remember. Headlines terrify versus clarify. I'll say it again. Headlines like to terrify, they don't clarify. Obviously, we know why that is, right? Clickbait, right? So whose job is it to clarify? It's our job, you and me. We are in this together. It's our job to clarify what's really going on to those around us. We are the experts. And of course, the recent Fed rate hikes by 75 basis points, and then the latest one supposedly coming out next week could be up to a point or higher. But the real question is, does the average consumer understand what that means? What it means when the Fed raises rates? In general, yes, they do understand what it means. Well, on a macro level, they understand it means that borrowing money is going to be more expensive than it previously was. Now, question, what's the impact of borrowing money being more expensive? People borrow less and can then afford less. So what do? They hit the pause button. So the better question for you is, what does the average consumer understand what the Fed rate hike means on a macro level? Because on a macro level, they do, because it just simply means things are getting more expensive. Now, the real question is, can you explain the real impact to the Fed raising those interest rates? And if not, this is a good reason to team up with a lender or someone you trust to help educate that audience. If you'd like to talk further about this and the real impact about the Fed rate hike to mortgage rates, I'd be happy to clarify that for you. I actually did a video on that. You can find that on any of my social channels about the direct impact that this actually does. So we've got all the media, all the negative headlines, all that noise. The question is, what can you control? You can't control the market or the media. We all know that, right? The rates are going to go up and down. The market's going to shift and change. But you can control your mindset and your attitude, your knowledge and your skills, and your actions on how you show up in the current market conditions. So what you say right now is important. So let's start with what to say right now. What you say and how you respond in the current market is critical. Again, people are uncertain and there's a lot of headwinds in the housing market. For some of you, it may be time to exercise those dormant sales and marketing muscles we talked about earlier. You haven't had to work them out in a while, and they may need a workout. So what are you hearing from people when you talk to them about real estate? What about the Mr. Know-It-All? We're in a housing bubble, and I'm going to wait it out. If you're not hearing this kind of reply, you're simply not talking to enough people. This is a very common thought process. What you say matters. If you want to overcome buyer and seller reluctance, stop selling and start helping. Your job is not to convince and convert. It's to be the guide for their journey, not yours. Hope this makes sense. So how many times a week do you get asked, how's the market? Oh, thank you, Manny. Appreciate that. Yeah. So how many of you get that question? How's the market? I'm sure that's a common question. I feel like I'm on the phone every day with that. Yeah, Jenny, lots of times. Yeah. I feel like that's an everyday conversation because I'm even having it with other professionals, right? Not only just with buyers, but other professionals as well. So you want to have a specific reply or key points depending on who you're talking to. There's a lot of chaos and confusion, so context really does matter. So when someone asks you, how's the market? What you want to say is, it depends. Are you interested in buying, selling, investing, or renting? Because depending on where you are, it's going to be a different response to each of those. So this is what I'm talking about with the skills that you need. You need to have specific answer to each of these specific categories. And we're going to help go over those here, so stay tuned here. So let's talk about what the current market is. And let's talk about something you already know, a buyer's market versus a seller's market. Now, a buyer's market, supply is greater than demand. There are more people looking to sell homes than there are people looking to buy. And a seller's market, demand is greater than supply. 4 to 6 months is a balanced market. 4 to 6 months of supply is a balanced market. Now, obviously, your local market can somewhat be different from this, but with an overall viewpoint, this holds true. But to get to the more appropriate question, who currently has the momentum? Who's got the momentum right now in your market? Here's a message that could match your market. What we're seeing right now is buyers are getting what they could not have gotten just a few months or even 2 years ago. There are more houses to choose from, less multiple bid offers to compete against. Buyers are getting seller concessions like closing costs and interest rate buydowns, offsetting the rise in interest rates and making homes more affordable. Would you be open-minded to look at some of these homes and explore your options? So that's an example of what you could say when talking to buyers. How many of you would like that? How many of you would use this kind of thing? Do you think this kind of script would be successful? Jenny would? Yeah. So let's keep going with what to say. You have to match your message to the market. So what is the current market? It's confusion, uncertainty, and fear. Think about the content or conversations you've been having. Are they helping or hurting? In times of chaos, people seek context. What they're really saying is, help me make sense of what's happening. How do you help people make sense with what's happening? You help guide people with education and information. Now is the ideal time to showcase your expertise with educational content. This is deeper than now is a great time to buy or sell. So the question is, Are you a student of the market, or is this a new skill for you? How are economic pressures working for and against buyers and sellers? Are you prepared to respond to what most people are seeing from the media, like we shared earlier? Do you know how to respond to the negative narrative of the media? Now, would you like some examples? Let's go over some right now. The first place to start is by using housing data to create confidence. This is matching your message to the market. So let's take a look at an example here. There are basically three types of housing markets. Oops. So there's appreciation, where home values go up. There's depreciation, where home values go down. And there's deceleration, where values are still going up, but at a much slower pace. So if you're a buyer or seller in today's market, you probably want to know what's going on and what's going to happen with home prices going forward. Will they continue that same growth path, or will house prices fall? Experts are forecasting ongoing appreciation, just at a decelerated pace. In other words, prices will keep climbing, just not as fast as they have been. Now, you could take that as a snippet on its own and simply say that to your prospects. So let's take this a little step further. Remember when I asked you just a little bit ago if you are a student of the market or if this is a new skill. If you haven't done this before, it would be important and useful for you to know what's going on in your local market. The active, the pending, and the closed in the last 30 days, so that way you can be clear on what the months of supply inventory is. Because what will months of supply and inventory tell you? The months of supply of inventory will tell you if we're in a seller's market, buyer's market, or if it's just a normalized market. The other useful piece of data for you to know is how many price reductions are happening. You also want to know the list to sales price ratio. Now let's break down some housing data so that you may use this for your toolbox and have something to point out. So before we're done, you're going to see some examples of how to use data to produce content for social media and to talk through on video. So right now, I just want to give you the high level stuff, but this is the real data, and I'll tell you where to get this data before we wrap up. So here's the 2022 home forecast for the rest of the year. And you can see that the average of all the sources is just over 8%. So as you can see, we're still in the positive for home price forecasts for the rest of the year. But yes, the rate of appreciation is slower, as it should be after coming out of the insane last couple of years that we've been in. How about potential growth for home equity over the next 5 years? Let's take this scenario right here. If you had a purchase price of $390,000 in January of 2022 and used an annual appreciation forecast of roughly 5%, the potential growth in home equity over the next 5 years would be about $102,000. How many of you feel that knowing this piece of data using just these sample figures would be useful in helping people feel more confident about their purchase for the next 5 years? Feel like when I talk to a lot of buyers, that's kind of their time frame. If they're buying now, they're buying for a house that will last them and their family for about 5 years, and then they'll be moving on. Now let's talk about inventory, because we're seeing obviously an increase in inventory, and we know that, but without proper context around the inventory, buyers can get nervous. Up until recently, we all know there was essentially virtually zero inventory. There was barely anything, right? We do not have an excess supply of inventory. We are entering a more normalized market of inventory, but we still have more demand than capacity and will for the foreseeable future. Obviously, when rates are hiking and jumping really quick, again, like we said, that will pause things, but overall, this holds true. The number of homes for sale across the country is growing, And what does that mean for buyers? It means they now have more options for those thinking about buying a home. This is the opportunity that many have been waiting for, who were outbid and outpriced in the last year, that have now taken on super high rent and are kind of sitting on the sidelines. What about this data? Why are we not likely to see a house price drop? Because we're at a 14-year housing shortage still. The red bars represent the years leading up to the housing crisis in 2008. As this graph shows, right before the crash, home building increased significantly. That's because the buyer demand was so high due to loose lending standards that enabled more people to qualify for a home loan. Even though inventory is increasing this year as the market moderates, supply is still low because we've had 14 straight years of the 50-year, below the 50-year average of available homes to buy. The graph helps tell the story of why there's still not enough homes on the market today. Now, keeping current matters is going to be your go-to source for housing data, charts, and examples that I just shared with you. Does anyone use KCM? Anyone that's here? Oh, David, sweet. David, yep. Jenny follows on my Instagram. Good. I think it's, David can speak to this, but I think it's somewhere like less than $30 a month or something. And it helps position you as a subject matter in housing, right? Because it gives you a bunch of information and charts and whatnot. They share the quotes, the charts, the what to says, so that way you can take it and repurpose it, repost it, share it to your listing and buyer consultations, because more than ever in this market, you need to be a subject matter expert. You can't just be one by saying it, you also need to be able to show it. So David, looks like you are already a step ahead on that. So here's some more examples. Has anybody heard this objection? What about all of those forbearance loans during COVID? Well, look at this. 89% of single-family homeowners who sought financial assistance through COVID-related mortgage payment forbearance plans have exited those plans. This is according to Black Knight data. 89%. And besides that, people currently own a home, have more equity than they've ever had in the history of home ownership. So if they really did get in a bind, the likelihood that they're going to sell versus foreclose, well, you guys can kind of see how that would go, right? They would get out of that house and probably at least break even, right? For the most part. Here's another quote that you could share. Experts don't believe that the market is in a bubble or a crash. The nation is suffering from a housing shortage crisis, which is likely to keep prices high. I brought Dave Ramsey up in my last class, but obviously you probably recognize Dave Ramsey, so millions of people do. I brought him up in that class, and he's basically saying that now is the best time to buy a home in the next 5 years. Why am I showing you this? It's an opportunity to repurpose content. The root issue of what drives home prices almost always is supply and demand. When interest rates go up, the demand goes down and the prices begin to soften and not be so crazy. That's what we're seeing right now. Could you use this as a 30-second reel, a blog post, a carousel image? Take these ideas from today and repurpose them. Yes, Jenny, I can get you the slides after, and I'm recording this, so you'll have ample opportunity. So that, don't be too crazy with the notes. But yes, notes are always good, right? So let's see some examples of agents that are actually doing this. All right, let's see if this works. You'll have to let me know if you can hear the audio. This is the one test I couldn't do on my own. Oh, I bet you can't hear that, can you? Dang it. Okay. So you can't hear that. All right. I'll have to fix that for next time. So he's given an expert opinion responding to recession fears and the impact on housing is what he was talking about. So here's another example, and I'm obviously not going to play it because you can't hear it. But this is an opinion piece in response to a local news posting some inaccurate data about housing. So you can see the title there, Las Vegas home prices declined for the first time in 2 years. And he went off and kind of like expertly defunct that statement. So kind of in going over these, we're demonstrating or showing you examples of different styles or approaches of content that you could have. You could do something like this agent, and where you could put the green screen of the article behind you and simply talk about that article and how it's not 100% factual. Once again, this is the media commentary versus an expert commentary, allowing you to kind of debunk what the media is providing, because we all know it's that clickbait, right, that we talked about earlier. So here's a TikTok video. Again, I can send you these slides if you want to watch this specifically. This one doesn't have any content or a wording to it, so I'm not gonna play it through. But again, I can send this to you. My apologies on that. But kind of just talking about the shift that's going on, and that we're kind of returning to more of a normal market. Now, how many of you would be willing to do that in the form of a reel or a TikTok or something, just talking about maybe a little factual data on what's going on with everything, maybe with a little bit of practice, some trial and error, such as me not getting the audio to pop up on this video content. I'm always willing to help get you started on that kind of thing. All right, good. Alita, Jenny, good. Yeah. This is easy stuff to do, right? Just, grab your articles, read them through, and then just talk about them. And then you can link those articles, and then you have some content to go off of and build from. So these ones don't have links, so I can talk to them. But on Instagram, you have several options for video. So it's important to note that starting in July 2022, so very recently, right, most videos can only be shared as Reels. So Reels allow you to record and edit short videos up to 90 seconds using Instagram camera. Obviously, we all know then that increased as well. So now you can actually have more than that. So you can add effects, music to your Reels. And it's just kind of like TikTok, right? These video guidelines always seem to change, so keeping up with it, it's kind of like a part-time job. So I don't want to speak too much to what the actual, guidelines and stuff is for these, because honestly, like the first time I started making this presentation, I had it all figured out, and then they changed them. So I mean, this stuff changes quickly. If you remember Instagram, you used to have Instagram TV, and now it's just Reels. And now YouTube has their shorts, and then TikTok. This is all a result of everyone trying to kind of mimic each other, right? But the nice thing about Reels is you can use it to feature, maybe a local donut or coffee shop. You can upload that and post it. It can be between 3 seconds and 10 minutes of length. Or if you got an open house, you can host it on Instagram and do a live stream on there, or do Facebook Live. Those are other ways to kind of like showcase it. You could put it on your stories, because people are more apt to watch video than read anything. So, and we all know people will flip through stories just like they will with TikToks. So it's a way for you to show off a home or a product or something like that. You can even create guides of different videos and have similar content, which will allow you to make it into a collection on your Instagram. So if you don't yet have a guide feature on your Instagram, take a look at mine, or we can talk through how to get that set up. But having having that is kind of a cool little feature. And you have to, like, in order to get it, you have to go to someone else's page that has it, and there's kind of like a workaround that way. So here's an example of a market update on YouTube. It's 15-minute video. So obviously we're not going to play it, but it got over like 2,000 views. So, something tells me that there's a place for long form content as well when it talks about market updates. Obviously it matters on the platform. So you all know that TikTok is better for short range, maybe funny videos or quick hitting videos. Instagram Reels, you can maybe get away with a little bit longer, a little bit more explaining. And then we all know YouTube is more like your long form kind of thing. One way I do some of my videos is I make it a long form for YouTube, and then I cut it into sections, and that's what I put on TikTok and what I put on Instagram Reels. So that way I'm making sections for the platforms that would rather have smaller form content, and then longer form content for YouTube. And then I'm not also having to double up because it's all the same video. I'm just cutting it down. So that'd be a way for you to structure some of your videos to build into longer form content and shorter form content. So here's an example of a social post highlighting the shift from the sellers having momentum to buyers. So what this is showing you is something that we're going to talk about in a moment, which is the seller interest rate buy down, which is a strategy that you can use to help your sellers maintain value in their homes and kind of get more dollars, which also then obviously means more money in your pocket. So on the left is before the shift that we're in with bidding wars. It's $40,000 over list. There's no seller concessions, and it has multiple bids going on, right? Obviously, we know the interest rate's lower too. The final price is $445, and yes, the interest rate was phenomenal. So the mortgage payment in that sense was about $2,288 with $45,000 paid over list price. We all know that is not exactly, that's 45 being with closing costs. That's not exactly a crazy. I mean, we've probably all seen crazier offers during that time, right? Then on the right side today, current market, no bidding war. Sellers are actually making some concessions depending on the market. So in this case, the total price would be less than what it was. But of course, we have a higher interest rate situation. So, crap, affordability. And even that 475 with a buy down would be great nowadays. But, oh, yeah, perfect. Yes. Yep. Go ahead and copy this, right? Canva. You guys should all live on Canva. It's our best friend. If you're not on Canva, get on Canva. CAVNA, Canva. Yes, Canva is the best. So we're going to talk about this in a moment, this seller buy down, which allows sellers to utilize concessions to help a buyer buy down the interest rate and get lower interest rate, which then opens up obviously tons of possibilities. So in this example, at 4.75, the down payment is the same, but look at the different mortgage payment. It's $217 per month lower compared to the shift. That's a needle mover for many people. So the advantage now is to buyers, the same house, different structure, with $31,000 saved up front and $26,000 saved over 10 years. I'm going to have some more examples on this kind of stuff too. So you think if you posted and explained something like this, how much do you think it could attract the attention of future buyers? The payment savings is actually greater for buyers with this plan versus trying to compete in the previous market. Does it help to educate and inform? Yes, it does. This is a way to navigate what's going on in today's market and showcase it's not all bad. There are ways to make it better. You just have to be smart about it. So here's an example of a social post highlighting the shift in the real estate market from sellers having momentum to buyers. What you're seeing here is the different counties, number of active listings, median sales price, list to sales price ratio, and median days on market. Once again, this is just another example of content you could be posting in your real estate market updates. Should it be everything you post? No, but it is useful for those who might be on the fence and might actually be active in the market. Let's keep going. Here's another example of a post from Long Beach, California, which we all know California is shifting really hard. And what I like about this one is that it says right here, 63.9% of homes in Long Beach were sold above asking price last month. Right in the caption there. So this is August, and it's showing that in this case, there are still homes in Long Beach selling above asking price. Then the picture gets into active listing, median listing price, the increase since 2021, and the average days on market. So once again, if you use this data properly, what does it say to you? It gives information. You can use the picture to capture, and you can use the cap and the wording in the post to provide more information, data, and your contact information to talk about it more. Ooh, that's my favorite saying right now, David. Marry the house, date the rate, baby. There we go. Here's an example of an infographic, 3 reasons to buy a home in today's shifting market. So number one, as buyer demand moderates, you may see the intensity of bidding wars erase or ease. We all know that that was a big deterrent for a lot of people in the last couple of years. Many have renewed their leases because they didn't want to have to compete with as many buyers. Number two, fewer buyers are bidding over asking price, but it is still a competitive market. Seems like nowadays, I don't know what you guys are feeling, but if you're offering over asking price, you're pretty competitive nowadays. Number three, housing inventory is increasing. We all know that, right? This means more options for your home search. By the way, that's 3 different videos or pieces of content you can do. You know, this is one infographic, but you could do 3 different videos and stuff on that. So hopefully you found that useful. So since we've been talking so much about buyers, let's take a moment and review some talking points with adjusting seller expectations. Now, got to ask I've been dying to ask this question. How are your seller pricing conversations going? Give me a quick snippet, whoever's in here. I want to know how these conversations are going. I could only imagine, but me being a lender, I don't have to deal with that part of it. All right, well, you will. Oh, yes, super fun. Yep. You will, Jenny. It'll come. Yeah. Maybe Jenny, you can talk to Alita about it. Obviously, you're probably getting some resistance, right? Especially on price reductions. It's better to set the price in line with the market versus making a pricing reduction. True? Wouldn't you agree? Even better would be to advise the seller on all of their options and make their listings stand out from the rest. So how do we do that? Anybody know how we would do that? Obviously, it's on the slide. So we use data to set seller price expectations. Again, this is where you being a student of your local market is important. Using your MLS data to make your case will help you and the seller get on the same page. So you want to show them new listings versus pending sold. You want to show them price reductions, the average list to sold price ratio, the average time on market, and the expireds. The story is in the data. This is the data you want to have prepared when you go for your listing presentation. Depending on how motivated of a seller you have and the competing listings, you may want to suggest the seller paid rate buy down. Obviously, I teased this a little bit earlier, but let's get into what the seller rate buy down is. Here's the question I want you to ask sellers and how to propose the strategy. Would you be open-minded to a strategy that doesn't require a price reduction and attracts more buyers to consider your home versus other homes? How many of you think that would be an okay question to ask a seller? Obviously, that would provide a little bit of a, when you ask your dog if they want a treat moment, right? Side head, like, oh, what do you mean? So the seller paid rate buy down. Now I know David knows about it because he was talking about it earlier on his social media. Does anyone else know what a seller paid rate buy down, like how it works, or have you heard of it? Good. Alita has, yeah, okay. So instead of asking the seller to lower the price of the home, we are seeing buyers win big by negotiating that some of the seller concessions goes towards buying down their rate on their mortgage, because we all know mortgage rates are high and they kind of just seemingly keep going higher. If you're part of my mortgage rate updates, the latest one I did was like 10 minutes long because I was talking about CPI data and all the stuff going on to why it keeps increasing, and we're at a peak right now. Things are high. So the seller buy down strategy has three major benefits. It reduces cancellations, it reduces price reductions, which is huge because that's more money in your seller's pocket and it means more money in your pocket, and it increases buyer affordability, which means closed loans. And I think we'd all agree that that's a good thing for every party, correct? So here's an example of a total cost analysis seller rate buy down. Now, Jenny, don't worry about making a bunch of notes. Again, I can send this to you, or we can go over this in a chart and stuff. But so if we take a sample purchase price of $675, which nowadays is, if you bought a $675 house, you would not even be a jumbo. With 10% down, you would get a loan amount of $607,500, and with an interest rate of 6.125, which is not too far off of where we are today. Again, the rates, might vary, but this is obviously for an example. So this being a 30-year fixed, and the payment's about $4,048 a month, and cash to close would be about $74,000. And that's just a standard out-of-the-box 10% down loan. Now, sellers are saying, oh, but the property is sitting. It's not selling. We've got other properties and listings to compete. Great. Well, then let's drop the price $25,000. So the next line, we've reduced the price, the loan amount. So obviously, if we reduce the price, that'll reduce the loan amount. And the interest rate will stay the same. And the payments savings difference for the buyer is only about $140 a month with that $25,000 price drop. Not bad for the buyer, but not really a huge needle mover. So now we go, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. Again, let's put this into the right context of the situation. Here's an example of a seller paid rate buy down. This is a $12,500 credit instead of a $25,000 price reduction. So it's half of that cost, right? We cut that in half. So that means the sellers are getting the buyers are getting $12,500 towards closing, which they can use towards, and you can specify that as well, but they're using it towards paying down the rate. So we got the same purchase price with a $607,500 loan amount. The interest rate, though, this is where really the magic happens. The interest rate is now 5.49. The payment is now $3,731, which is roughly $317 less per month. Obviously, that's a little bit more of a needle mover. So what this means for Mr. and Mrs. Seller is that we've just opened up an entirely new bucket of affordability for buyers in this higher interest rate environment. Now, just for comparison purposes, in the final column, to get that same savings in the buyer's monthly payment, you would have to drop the price $57,500 if all you're doing is doing a price reduction. And I think when given the options, your sellers would choose to give $12,500 in concessions and credit over a $57,000 price reduction. We all know that they'd be willing to accept that, and we all know it'd be better for you guys too. In this market where the buyers have a little bit more momentum, the sellers are going to have to budge a little bit, obviously, where they haven't had to before, but presenting this will help them think about it in a different way. The other interesting thing to note is that the savings over 5 years for the buyer. So the savings for the price reduction for a buyer is only $6,800. So the price reduction of 25 grand, the savings is going to only be $6,800 over 5 years. If you do the credit of $12,500, because of the lower interest rate payments and interest paid over 5 years, that savings jumps to $23,500. If you drop the purchase price of the home $57,500, the savings is only $15,500, just under. So what's the real benefit here? Obviously, it's a win-win-win. If you're in the market where the buyers already have momentum and the sellers don't anymore, and you're in a situation where you want to make that listing more attractive, but you don't necessarily want to drop the price, keeping the comps high, obviously, by not dropping the price and all that stuff that does, it also would then please the seller, correct? Because they're selling it at a higher price. You, as the listing agent, what do you want? You want to get the seller the maximum amount of possible money, right? That's part of what your job is as a list agent. So if you want them to get the maximum possible amount of money, which is the option which is best, we all know the best option in this case would be the seller rate buy down. Keeping it the same, it sits and doesn't sell. Drop the home price, 25 grand. Affordability is movement is marginal. The seller credit of 12,500. It's an easy comparison to see what's better for everyone. Hopefully that you're tracking this and it makes sense with what you're looking at. So here's another example of just the difference in the monthly payment savings, and it's a lot easier to kind of see that difference. You can see the price reduction of 25,000. There's the $140, or if we do the buy down, or dropping it 57,000, you get pretty close. So let me take a drink of water. To sum it all up, the seller buy down really means that the buyer will pay a lot less interest over the life of their loan if they saw the life of the loan out. They will be able to qualify for higher loan amounts and more expensive properties because of the lower payment. And they will be eligible for better mortgage programs that could potentially have lower to debt income ratio requirements. Again, all important stuff here. Oh, Rick, sorry, I didn't see your comment there. So how to use it in, I'm assuming, a listing information, how to set that up. So you could set that up prior to, and maybe Alita could speak to this, or if David has with experience with this, but Alita, maybe you could speak to this. How would you set this up in a listing referring to this seller rate buy down? I mean, my thoughts are, and obviously I'm not a professional realtor. I'm on the other side of things, but I would think that would be part of your description is that, this is what it's listed at, but the sellers are willing to provide a seller concession towards a buy down. Yeah. So that's kind of what I was thinking is sellers are willing to do, or if you're in a negotiation, you could do that as well. So sellers are willing to negotiate seller rate buy down. And you can specify that that's where the money would go towards buying down the rate. So here's a question you would want to ask the buyer. Yes, okay, and before I get into that, yes, the buyer's agent needs to have a pretty good understanding. So, that would be part of educating your fellow realtor on what it all means. There you go, David. Yep, seller open to provide a rate buy down if needed. It is not a different type of mortgage. Yes, it is a strategy that you use for seller concessions. So think of it as a different use of seller pays. So you're able to use the seller pays towards, instead of it going towards cash to close, now it's going towards buying down the rate, which makes someone's affordability there. And then if buyers are seeing your listing, knowing that you're willing to do that, they might be willing to put in an offer in at asking price, because then they know they're guaranteed seller concessions that they can then use. So it almost gives you an edge of being able to sell a house more expensive while using seller concessions. So here's a question that you would want to ask the buyer. Would you be open-minded to a plan to reduce your interest rate and increase your buying power with no cost to you? This is what you could propose to the buying agent that you're talking to, or if you have communication in that sense. Or if you're working with a buyer specifically, how many of you think that they would answer favorably to that question? Obviously, it's guided towards pushing them in that direction. So why am I sharing all this? Obviously, I'm sharing this because I have one question. Do you prefer a competent advisor over a generic and average advisor? Obviously, you'd want a competent advisor. But first, you may need to level up that knowledge and skills to deliver that value. So educating yourself in this sense is doing that. If you'd like to go over it more or come up with more strategies, you can always schedule a call with me if you wanted to. You could take a picture of this code or put it on your phone and follow the link. It brings you to my Calendly, where we can set up an appointment. We can go over the seller rate buy down, and we can explain it more if you want. Obviously, you all know how to use this kind of thing. This became very popular during COVID when you went to a restaurant, because they all of a sudden no longer had menus. So you had to do that in order to find a menu. So just something to think about if you wanted to go over this kind of concept some more. So to wrap it all up, let's review the few areas to what you just learned for education and information, and find your next seller. So what I'd like you to do is take a few moments and give some direction on what's going on. So the top 3 listing sources that you have access to. Your database of past clients and sphere of influence is, of course, going to be your top source for future clients. These will be your top 3 listing sources. And then you want to tap into those increasing expired listings and distressed homeowners. So you can use this idea, the seller rate buy down idea, and looking through these expired listings. I've talked to many agents that I work with that just peruse expired listings and get a lot of business from that. So first you go out and outreach to your database of past clients and your sphere of influence. So here's a sample text or email that you could send today. So, hey, Susan, hope you and the family are well. I was thinking about you and the other day. The housing market is, we know, batshit crazy. And I'm sending you a home equity update to all of my friends and clients. Are you curious about what your new value of your home is? If some of you have HomeBot, this does it for you in an email form. But if you want to get more personal, this is a text you could send out or an email on your own. People are always curious about what the value of their home is, aren't they? We all want to know. And of course, we'd rather not send them to Zillow. Zillow is a no-no, right? This whole concept is called fishing. And what do you need to catch a fish? You need good bait. Equity updates will get you that bait and get you started on conversations. So that's one idea that you could try right now. Here's another idea. Who here has potential sellers who are waiting to, quote unquote, time the market? Here's a sample text, email, phone script, whatever you want to call it, that you could send. Hey, remember when you wanted to wait and sell your house and time the market? Now is the time you've been waiting for. Sellers are at or near the top of the market, and unlike earlier this year, there are more homes for sale, which means you can be certain that you'll find your next house and make the move that you've been wanting to do. Remember, there was a reason we weren't getting inventory before, because one of the major fears were not being able to find your next home. Sellers were not willing to list their home because they were worried they couldn't find one. Well, now we're getting to that more normalized market where they can. This is the perfect opportunity to have those conversations. Let them know that you're still there's still a great opportunity to capture that resale value of their house, take the equity that they've gained, repurpose it like they wanted to in their next house. They just weren't able to then, and they can now. Hope this makes sense. And it's just really simply about having conversations with people. The inventory lift is exactly what they were waiting for. So now is the time to contact them and let them know that. So one of the classes I'm working on right now, and hoping you'd be open to learn more ways to find sellers in today's market. So I'm working on a 10 ways to get more listings in any market class. That's coming along. Hopefully you'd be able to attend that when I list that. Another class would be to help you master database marketing, so you learn how to get organized and close more sales. This is another class I'm working on. And if you did not attend or would like the link to my recorded session, I already taught the class, You Are the Brand, the 5-step blueprint to get more clients, make more money, and stand out from the crowd. So that recording I have as a private link I can send you, or I guess it's unlisted link I can send you. Or, if you're part of a brokerage or part of a team and you feel like it'd be beneficial to have an individual class taught, I can do that as well. Just contact me and we can set up a time. So let me review and summarize everything that we've talked about. We talked about what to say right now, leading with education and being a student of the market. We went over how to unlock inventory through starting your past clients, then your sphere of influence, and expired listings. And then we shared with you how to overcome cancellations, price reductions, and buyer affordability by leveraging your lender through the seller buy-down strategy. So I hope today was valuable. So one question I like to ask at the end of every class is, what was your one big takeaway from today? What was the one big idea, the one big feel? What did you get from today's session? Good. Yeah, Jenny, we can definitely talk about that some more and see how you can utilize that concept. It's a unique way to kind of like repurpose seller pays. Oh, thank you, David. That was nice. I'll always take a compliment. Beautiful. If anyone who does not know me who's in here, feel free to contact me on the right there. That QR code is to my link tree. It has all my links. You can go make fun of me on TikTok or Instagram and whatnot. The bottom QR code, that is to actually set a meeting with me, so it links up to my Calendly, and then we can set up whether it's a Zoom meeting or we can go meet somewhere for coffee or lunch. I'm always willing to do that kind of thing. If you're out of town, let's Zoom. Let's have a conversation. But if that's all I got. Yeah, took a ton. Oh, good. Took a ton of screenshots for social media. Yes. And if any of you want the slides or need anything from this, let me know. Or if you'd like the link from this class to rewatch, I can send that as well. If you have any colleagues that you feel like this would be valuable for, or if you were at that previous class, You Are the Brand class, you think it'd be good for them, have them contact me and I can send them the link as well. But thank you all for coming. I have more content coming, still working on it all. But always good for suggestions and anything you'd point out to improve. You guys know me enough where I'm always good for that. So, okay. I appreciate the feedback, everyone. Thank you so much for attending. Everyone have a good night, and you all know how to reach me.